secondary tables here, and to do that I'm going to glue it up like I did before with MDF and the melamine, but I've also got to do a little bit more because I've got to make it longer. I've got to stretch these pieces out. These pieces are only 44 3/4 inches long, and I need 52 1/4 inches long. So what I'm going to have to do, I cut these, what did I cut these, 10 inches wide? Yeah, 10 inches wide, which is wider than what I need, and I need 2 pieces to go in here for my secondary tables. But what I'll do is go ahead and glue these up into one piece, and then I'll do my ripping. I'll rip it all down to the width that I need. So I'm going to have to cut one of these pieces down. I've got the extra one here, so I'm going to have to cut a short piece off each one of these, and then I'll glue them together. Well, I got to set up my 10-inch radial arm saw to cut that piece 7.5 inches. And just for good measure, I think I'll make it 8 inches. So what did I do with my earplugs? My ear protection. I've got to do is I've got to take the melamine off of one side of the melamine boards so that it'll glue up to the MDF, and I might just scratch the MDF just a little bit to make sure the glue stays on it. So let me push this saw back in here out of the way. Pretty good. That was easier than doing it with the hand belt sander. It took a little bit to get the right depth on there to get the melamine off, but once I did, it cleaned it up really nice. We've got a nice toothy edge on there, toothy surface on there for glue to bond to. Kind of funny, the belt, the feed belt for that 18-inch belt sander is basically just a roll of cloth back sandpaper roll. And feeding the melamine in there, especially this little piece, I didn't want to feed, it just slipped on that sandpaper on the feed roll. I had to push it through by hand. Alright, now I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to do it with my little brush, clean the dust and everything off of it, and then we'll start a glue up. I've got the blank for the secondary table all glued up. What I did is leftover melamine that I had and the leftover MDF that I had, I ripped down two lengths of 10-inch wide pieces of both. I cut an 8-inch section off of the second 10-inch wide piece, and I glued these up together using the standard gluing technique that I used before, using all the clamps that I had plus some gravity clamps to hold it down. So this isn't ideal, this isn't perfect. It'd been nicer if I had a continuous sheet, especially of the melamine, which is going to be on top and exposed. The MDF is going to be down under, so doesn't make that much difference. But anyhow, it's all glued up into one nice piece for my secondary tables. But 10 inches is too wide for this, and what I want is two secondary tables. I want one of them about 6 inches and one of them about 2 or 3 inches. That gives me 8, and what I've got between my column there, a little less than 10 inches. So I didn't have anything to push this one edge up against to make it flush with both the MDF and the melamine. I got pretty close. I got pretty good right there, actually. Not too bad. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through the 10-inch radial arm saw to rip it. I'll rip a good clean edge, probably on this edge right here, and then I'll reset my saw and rip a 2-inch piece, and then I'll rip a 6-inch piece. And that'll give me my secondary table. Oh yeah, I forgot. They got 10 inches there, but I need an inch for a fence, so I've got to have a fence in there too. All right. Well, let's see how it goes here. Oh, now I got to set up my 10-inch radial arm saw again, and of course I use that for a table for all the other crap. These pieces are some pieces that I had screwed down on here for rollers, for anti-kickback rollers and stuff when I was ripping. I don't need them for this. Well, anyway, I had to take those off because I had to use the full width of the table there for my big rip for the table on the 12-inch saw. And I just used some cling wrap here, put down on the table on the 12-inch saw to keep the glue from sticking to it. And that's put it down for my glue up. I think when my wife bought this saw, we had a plastic catch thing on the back of it there for catching the sawdust when we were doing crosscut sawing, and that didn't last forever. So I made up this thing here out of fiberglass pieces that I found someplace. I don't remember where I found them, but anyway, I just made this up. And I had it set up on a table. I had a table set up in one of the buildings I had here for a while with long extension tables on both sides. So I had this set up so that I could run my dust collector, my vacuum cleaner for dust collector out either side, and have other tools set up on it that I needed dust collection. Of course, that doesn't work for ripping. Ripping will hook right up to the saw guard here. I cut through that on the first cut. I went through there pretty fast, but having that blade guard on there like that wound up kicking a lot of sawdust and stuff out. It didn't get picked up with a vacuum, so I run through the next couple of times. I went through a lot slower, and so that way the vacuum picked up most of the dust. Of course, there's still a little bit that gets kicked out on it, but not near as bad as if I run through fast. Well, I've got those two pieces done now, and that should work pretty good. I got a 6-inch piece and a 2-inch piece, and now I'll need a 1-inch piece to go into here for the fence to be able to move to change fence positions and stuff. But these pieces here are longer than this piece than the main table, so I can cut those off, and that'll cut these rough edges off and smooth these up. So I'll turn the 10-inch saw around to crosscut, mark these tables, these secondary tables here, and cut them off to fit. Now we've got these clamps that go in there on the rails on the saw, on the 12-inch saw, and they just go in like that and clamp these back rails to the front rails. There's supposed to be 3 of them, but I've only got 2 of them. I'm looking on eBay to find some. I've got some lined up there that I can get the spare for that. Some of these guys think they're plated in gold. Well, there's a little bit of a arch or rock in those boards. None of them were perfectly dry. They got damp and stored for a while, so they kind of took a set. Those ones there kind of took the set opposite the one that first one I made, the big table, but they'll come down. I'll go ahead and put some weight on them, on both ends of them, and so they can bring them down so they're level on a plane with that big table. But anyway, that's the table for the radial arm saw for the 12-inch one. Now I need to go find a board that I can use for a fence on there and put that in. At first I was thinking that I could use this cutoff for a fence, but it's not tall enough. It's almost the same width as what the depth of this table is, so it wouldn't work for a fence. Now for cross-cutting, put the fence in there right behind the main fence, between that and these secondary fences here, and it's not going to make any difference. But I noticed looking at this saw, when I set this up for a rip cut, if I set it up for the in fence, in rip on the outer fence, then it's off about a ½ inch. Okay, that is now set up on the 0 scale for the in rip on the main fence, on the outer fence. So I'm almost exactly a ½ inch off on this fence. So anyway, for ripping, like I say, I always use a tape scale anyway, rather than using the scales on here to set my rip. But I made just a little bit, a ½ inch error on measuring out my table. That's not too bad, I guess, for coming at it with nothing to reference against. I suppose I could always take this table off, rip a ½ inch off of it, but I'm not going to worry about it, because like I said, for cross-cutting it's not going to make any difference at all. Give me a little bit more room for cross-cutting. I don't think it's going to make any difference. I'll have to see once I get everything together and get a fence on there. And for ripping, I can just go ahead and, well, let's see where the 0 is for the inner fence. There's a 0 for the inner fence. Okay, my Well, that doesn't make any difference. That's going to be about 3/8 of an inch. So just 1/4 of an inch. So the inner fence is just 1/4 of an inch. The inner set for the inner rip is just 1/4 of an inch in too far, in past my dimensions here. So I could have made this one of these fences here, and one of these tables here, just 1/4 of an inch wider, 3/4 of an inch wider if I'd made this table a 1/2 inch narrower. Oh well, we'll figure it out. Like I said, I always double check the measurements on it anyway, and make sure that I get it right. I can make a fence board, I guess, that is a little thicker, that sticks out a little bit here, a 1/2 inch proud, and just make a rabbet in here so that my fence sticks out a 1/2 inch from the seam in the table or the joint in the table if I wanted to use that gauge on the saw. Well, think about it. Like I said, I got to find something to use for a fence. I've got these thin strips of madrone, but I don't have anything long enough, thick enough and long enough to use for a fence out of the madrone. I'm pretty sure I might have a piece up there. I'll have to check. But I don't need madrone anyway. I can just use spruce or hemlock. It doesn't make any difference there. Alright, well, I'm done playing with that for now. I'm going to put some weight on those secondary tables to see if I can bring those down. Might not be able to because they're dried out pretty good. I've been here in the basement for a few days now with the heat and dehumidifier going. I guess I could always sprinkle a little bit of water on them and see what happens then. But anyhow, that's done. That's done for now.